Hey folks, Tony tonight, and I'm going to do a quick little tutorial on how I like to do color adjustment and clean up photos. And I like to shoot in camera raw. If you're just a person that goes out with your DSLR and shoots in JPEG format, you really are missing the boat sort of with shooting in raw, because there's so much more you can do to adjust the shadows, to change saturation, exposure and stuff if you shoot in camera raw. So what I do is I go out and shoot in a mode on my Nikon D5100 that does a JPEG like that as a sample, and then it does a camera raw version. And a lot of times the camera raw does not look as good as the JPEG. I'm picking this photo here because it's shooting out my front door, and I'd like to show people kind of how the garden looks just right out our front door. But you see some things that are wrong here. The color's not quite what I want it to be. The shadows are kind of dark in some places, and I've got this hose laying here. I've got some power lines and stuff going through the trees, and I kind of want to put my best foot forward here with my photo. So I'm in Adobe Bridge. I've got Photoshop open in the background. I'm going to double click on this one right here. I've got a JPEG version and a .NEF, which is the Nikon version of a raw file. I'm going to double click on that and we'll open it up. And what it does, Photoshop brings up, if you've got Photoshop CC, which is what I'm using, it brings up your camera raw in a program called Camera Raw for Adobe Photoshop. So this is not what you're used to seeing in Photoshop. Photoshop's still running in the background, and this Camera Raw software is running as a plug-in to that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at my color a little bit. These shadows are maybe just a little too dark. My sky's blown out just a little bit. So probably what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the exposure back just a little bit so I can see some blues in my sky. And then I'm going to go into shadows, and I'm going to bring the shadows up a little so I can see a little more detail. I don't want to bring it up too much, but something like that. If I hit my whites just a little, it kind of makes things a little more vibrant. I've got really good rich color in here, so I don't want to go too crazy, but I might like go here in the vibrance just a little bit, give it a little more vibrance, a little more clarity. You see what that does there? So I'm not going to go too far. I don't want to make anything look artificial, right? But I just want to kind of bring everything. I might even bring my blacks up just a little. So you can go too far with the blacks. Any of these, if you go a little too far, you start to get a little artificial looking. But that, for my taste, looks a lot better. So I'm going to say open image down here, right? I know I'm not using a screen capture thing. I'm an old school. I like to be able to point at the screen. I do have Camtasia. I do have Snagit too and all that. But I really like just being able to point to the screen. So I'm going to do that. I know my head gets in the way sometimes. Sorry about that. So here we go in Photoshop. It didn't open up the entire thing, so I'm going to hit Control-0. Control-0 brings me up to full screen there. And so I can see immediately the things I want to get rid of. First of all is this. And if you're new to Photoshop, if you're old to Photoshop, you know all about the patch tool. But if you're new to Photoshop, this is a really good little tutorial to show you how to fix things. Now, over here underneath the eyedropper, you got a whole bunch of tools: spot healing, healing brush. There's a lot of really good tools here. But I'm going to use the patch tool for this. I've selected the patch. It actually looks like a little patch here. And the patch tool is not the kind of thing that you draw straight lines with. It sort of doesn't even let you do that. You have to kind of drag around here. So I've got not the best mouse in the world, but a pretty good mouse. I'm going to draw a little kind of rough line around this. I'm leaving a little bit over here on the end, and I'll show you why just in a minute. So I'm going to draw around all that, and I'm going to close it off. Now I've got this selected. Now what I do, I just grab in here and pull up to a place where I think everything looks kind of cool, and let go. And I'm going to do a Control-D to deselect. And as you see, I did a pretty good job of fixing that up. Now right here is a little bit of oddness. I'm going to go ahead and kind of clone this out here too. It's not really cloning. But I'm going to get this. I'm going to try to make that look a little more natural. So I'm going to Control-D again to deselect. Now I've got this little area here I'll come back and fix in a minute. I've also got this area up here. I'm getting the magnifying glass tool over here, and I'm going to zoom in on this. So now I'm up here in this part where we have the hose up here, and you have to be a little bit careful with how you work with these tools. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge again. I'm going to come back and I'm going to use the probably the old school clone tool for that, to fix these edges of this right on this part right here. So what I'm going to do now, even though you'd think you want to drag down here, you might end up, this thing can act odd. It could pull light from somewhere else. I'm going to go down here to a very neutral area. Now, even though this is not the same color, and you can see here what I'm sampling from, it will actually try to match the colors in the background here. It's just more of a textural thing that we're trying to do. Control-D. So as you can see, it even matched up my places where I need to go out and bleach the sidewalk. But there we go. Now I've kind of gotten rid of the hose, except for these little parts right in here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer, a little tighter. And since I've got an edge here, I'm going to actually use the old clone tool. And I'm sorry, I went to the wrong place for that. Here's the clone tool. It looks like a little clone stamp. So I'm going to go back. This is a tool that's been in Photoshop forever. And there's still a use for it. I mean, there's all kinds of fancy other ways to do this now, but I kind of like this. So I'm going to go get to, I've got about a 20 pixel brush here. I'm going to hold the Alt down. I'm going to get right where on that edge, see, right on the edge of that sidewalk. Then I'm going to come down here, and it shows me what I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to kind of paint over that, just so I know I've got a really believable edge here, right? I'm going to get rid of all the stuff here beside it. I might even sample a little bit here just to kind of straighten that up. Now, once again, I think I'm going to go back to the patch tool again for this portion right here, because there's just a whole lot of little rock and stuff here that we can do. I'm just doing little portions of this. You don't have to do it all at once. Control D again here. That's kind of believable. Looks like there's a rock there. Let's go ahead and get this part out. So what you're doing, you're not exactly mimicking reality here. You know what you're doing? You're kind of just patching over stuff. And if I go back to 0, you'd never know there was a hose there, except for this one place down here where I've got to go back and fix. So let's zoom back in here again. I'm not trying to belabor this or anything, but once again, I think I'll go back to the clone tool again just to get that little portion right there. And I'm going to do my alt click right here. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to try to create me an edge there. That's believable. Okay, and I'll probably go over here and I'll still clone some of this out here. So I'm just cloning, I'm hitting Alt over here and then sampling from that area. Now I still got a little bit of hose here. I don't know if anybody would even notice that, but let's go ahead and take the patch tool again, just get rid of that. Drawing around it, pull over here, there we go. Control 0. Now, not Control 0, but Control D to deselect. Now what I've got up here in the sky, if you see I've got these wires. Now here's where I make a judgment call. How much do I want to stick with reality here? I'm going to do a Control 0 and look at it. I can see that if I'm going to use this in to put up on the wall even, I don't think I'm going to notice too much up here. You know, what I focus on when I see this picture is all this foreground flowers and stuff. So a lot of this up here, I don't care that I'm absolutely perfect with this. And this tool is not an absolutely perfect tool, but we can draw around all these wires with that patch tool and probably do a pretty satisfactory job of just getting rid of these lines. So I'm going to just do this one right here, just like that. I'm going to pull down to here and I'll let go. Control D. I see it seems to have overdone a little bit of these blues here, but I don't even think I'm going to notice that when I pan back out, zoom back out. Same thing up here in the top. Now I could do this a little more clean, I know, but I'm going to just real quickly show you how I do these. Control D again. That's not bad. Here's this big, thick, fat power line. I'm going to take it kind of in chunks here. Now right here around these trees, you see these limbs over here? I'm going to be more careful around that because I don't want to make it look too artificial. Let's go up on this one. Control D. You wouldn't know that's hardly there. Let's work on this right here. Power line. There we go. Control D. Well, with Control D is to deselect after you got it. I see right in here, this could be a little tricky because I've got these limbs that I'll be able to see. I don't want to like break them apart and make it look strange. But I am going to go across this right here because it's kind of laying back in the background. So I'm the same sort of thing. Bring it down where it's no longer in the picture. Control D. Looking pretty good. Still got some stuff up here. Let's get rid of this. I'm doing the stuff that's over the trees first, just so I can really dive down into the trees and get portions of foliage. Now, see, I got all this up here top too, and we'll probably use the same tool for that. I'm guessing I could certainly use the old clone tool for that, but that patch tool just does a great job. Now, right here, you know, here's a place where I could go ahead and use the clone. If I use the clone, I'll be able to get these limbs. So I'm going to use the clone just for a minute. So I'm going to put my Alt there. And I'm going to go ahead and get my limb and do that. See, that way I keep the integrity of that limb. Same kind of thing here. I'll probably sample from the bottom and go there. And I've still got that limb sticking there, and it's totally believable right there as well. Clone all this out. Right here is an important place, so I can keep those limbs there. And now it's kind of, you know, I did kind of a better job there, so it took a minute longer than I normally would take. I see a little bit of transient here from where I did a clone just a minute ago with the, so I'm going to kind of work that out a little. That's all right. Let's go down here, Control D. We kind of got rid of most of that. Up here we still got problems. So I don't want to make up here again. I'm just working fast and quick, down and dirty, just trying to make something that's going to be fairly believable, because all this stuff kind of hangs in the background, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't know that anybody's going to like go in here and look to see if I've faked anything. Certainly a professional photographer might be able to go in there and notice that, but most people are not. Like I say, the focal point of this photo is elsewhere. Okay, I didn't go far enough for that, so you can do it twice if you want to. I'm going to Control D here. Let's get rid of some of this. Control D. Once again in here, there's a good bit of power line kind of hanging there. Go down to here, Control D. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just kind of patching up all these little spots. Now this used to be fairly complicated. About the only thing you could do was clone this out years ago. Photoshop CC does a great job of this kind of mess right here. I think it's fantastic, and I love this tool. Let's just keep on going. I might just fast forward so I don't bore the crap out of you here. Let's get rid of all that. All right, Control D. So now I'm going to back out again, Control 0 to back out. And once again, you're not really looking up in here for anything anyway. What really catches people's eyes right in here, I see one more place up top where I've got some power line right in here. And that might be noticeable, it might not. Let's get the, darn it, let's get the patch tool again. Let's just get that little bitty snid bit right there out. Snid bit, did I say that? Control 0, Control D to deselect again. And wow, there you go, that's kind of nice. I'm looking for whatever else I might want to change with this. I'm not really seeing a whole lot. I might do an image auto contrast to see if that does anything to it. I kind of like to do that the last thing, just to see if there's anything else I want to add. But there you go. That's kind of a nice picture of the garden. Let me do a file save as here. File save as, and we'll call this 033E. I actually had played around with this before. Yeah, let's replace that one. Number 12. Let's go back to let's do a before and after here. So file, open. Here is 033, just the JPEG version that I kind of started with. Control 0, so there's that. And here's what we end up with. None of the power lines, everything, and the colors look really nice. I've really somewhat suspended reality. It is a beautiful little garden area out in front, and that really is pretty much how it looks. It's just the camera does not capture the color that you actually see when you're out there. I'd say maybe I'm 10% to 12% more saturated than what it really was, but it really was beautiful this evening as the sun was coming in from the west from this angle and shooting from the shadows into the highlights. So I hope this has helped, folks. If you can, I do highly recommend you shooting in Camera Raw, starting with Camera Raw, doing some adjustments with the shadows and with the the tone, the blacks, the whites. Your clarity is really a good thing. It's a little bit of saturation you do in there, and then you'll start with something that's really much better than the JPEG version. And I promise you, when you pull it in and start actually working with it in Photoshop and then saving as a JPEG, you'll end up with a much more satisfying image. People, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Click subscribe, come back. I'm going to do a whole little series of videos that just show the simple things, because it seems like that's what people really like to see. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and come on back. And if you have any questions, send them my way. No question is too simple.